Hey guys, this is Teddy. Welcome to my real estate channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Monte Carlo simulation in real estate. So the Monte Carlo simulation is a lot different from discounted cash flow, IRR, NPV, and DCF. It is essentially a way to try and forecast what a potential investment will do in the future. Now, obviously we can't predict the future, but the Monte Carlo simulation is used a lot in hurricane forecasting, for instance. If you've ever been in an area like me that's prone to being hit by hurricanes, you've probably been watching TV and you see the model and it's got the line and it's going straight for your place and you're freaking out. And you're freaking out because a lot of times those forecasting models are correct. And Monte Carlo simulation is no different. Basically, what the Monte Carlo simulation does is it takes a normal distribution, or most of the case, or in the most simple cases, the one that I'm going to show you here, it takes a normal distribution or a bell curve and hammers in 10,000 different scenarios. So the computer's just going to do 10,000 different scenarios. It's going to go, what if it did this? 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 10,000 times. And it's going to put out an average or a most likely scenario of what your cash flows are going to do. And the Monte Carlo simulation is used a lot outside. It's used in regular finance, and it's a very important skill to have. I had a professor who told me that if you are really good at Monte Carlo simulations, you could get a job at a corporation and you would be doing nothing but Monte Carlo simulations all day. So it's a very important skill to learn, and here's how, okay, I'm getting off track here. Here's how you do it. Okay, so we have an initial investment here of $100,000. We have a growth rate of 2%, we have a standard deviation of 1%, and we're going to have a discount rate of 8%. If you don't, if you haven't downloaded the spreadsheet, make sure to check down below because the spreadsheet that I'm going to be using is down in the description. It's super simple to do, and it helps you a lot because you can follow along. Okay, so the Monte Carlo simulation, if you don't pay attention to anything else. Just pay attention to this little green line here. This little green line is essentially what the Monte Carlo simulation is going to be manipulating. It's going to make all of these little percent signs go up and down in various average patterns according to this normal distribution curve or bell curve. So what is growth? Well, the growth can be anything. It can be inflation, it could be market, if the market goes up, if you're planning on the market go down. Basically, it is the growth of each cash flow over the period of 5 years. So in this scenario, let's just hit F9, let's run the Monte Carlo simulation, and you will see that it just changes. But most of the time, in my simulation, it hovers around 3%, 1%, 3%, 2%, and 2% right here. Well, it's being manipulated by this little formula right here. This formula is what I call the brains of the Monte Carlo function. This is actually where most of the calculations is being done, and any other model that you see, it's going to follow some type of formula like this. So the normal inversion is basically representative of what's called normal distribution, which is this right here. The rand number that you see here is the computer's way of producing a totally random number. Now, it's theoretically impossible for a computer to produce a random number, but it's going to do its best, and it's the best thing that we have so far with the technology we have. And the rand function produces a number between 0 and 1, and it's always a decimal. So the computer will spit out 0.23 or 0.91 or 0.78 at totally random intervals. And right here we have the mean. And the mean is essentially what this is right here. In this graph, it's a 0. Our mean is going to be 2%. And then we have our standard deviation, which is going to be 1%, which is right here we have the 1%. So the standard deviation is essentially how volatile do you want your growth numbers or your growth percentages or your little green things down here to be moving or to be forecasted to fluctuate. A higher standard deviation means that the numbers are going to be, going up and down way more than if you had 1% compared to 2%, and it's really just a representative of risk or volatility. And discount rate is the regular discount rate that we have with things like NPV and discounted cash flow. If you don't know what NPV or discounted cash flow are, I've got other videos on it, so make sure to check that out. This video, I can't explain all of that, but there's lots of other videos on it too. And our time is going to be 5 years. A lot of people would do a longer time span, but in this case, we're going to have a shorter time span just for simplicity's sake. And our terminal price is going to be $300,000. So our terminal price is essentially what we plan to sell the real estate asset for after our 5 years are up. And we started out, we bought the asset for $100,000. Year 1, year 2, year 5, and all of the years down below, just for simplicity's sake, I made them cash flow at $10,000. Now in a more complicated model, it's going to be different, I know, but like I said, I don't want to confuse the hell out of people. So I just made the cash flow for each year $10,000. And if you look, the cash flows are times by the growth rate, and that's why they're changing each year down the road. So the Monte Carlo simulation is essentially modifying our cash flows each year. So maybe year 1, cash flows are times by 1%. Year 2, we had theoretically tremendous growth, and year 3, we had 3% growth. So like I said, the Monte Carlo simulation is spitting out random numbers here. And for this one Monte Carlo simulation, we had an IRR of 27%, a discounted cash flow of 236,000, NPV 126. Like those look like good numbers, but then again, this is just a hypothetical simulation here. So you may be wondering, what are all these numbers right here? Why is your whole entire graph filled with random numbers? Well, the Monte Carlo simulation becomes more accurate, and this is in statistics too. If the more calculations that you do, the more data that you have to work with, the more likelihood that your predictions are going to be right. So in the Monte Carlo simulation, we're going to go through 10,000 probabilistic scenarios. So watch, if you just hit F9, that's 10,000 scenarios right there. And that used to be very difficult back in the day, but as computers have become more powerful, it's not a big deal. So why is it important that we do 10,000 calculations as opposed to 10? Or what is it about having all those calculations that is really important? Well, think about it like this, and I saw this on another video. You guys may see it if you were trying to learn Monte Carlo simulation. There was a guy who explained it like this. We as human beings, we have fairly normal lives. We wake up, we go to work, and we come home, maybe we watch TV, and we all have set patterns that we do, and we deviate outside those patterns. But if you were to look at your life through 10,000 days, the likelihood that your life could be modeled in a spreadsheet to be predicted, if somebody could predict your life, they would probably be able to if they saw 10,000 scenarios. And this is kind of what the Monte Carlo simulation is doing. With 10,000 scenarios, you can actually come up with a fairly predictive way to forecast your real estate investment or your cash flows in the future. And it's a very powerful technique. But anyway, I hope that you guys found this video useful and entertaining. If you like, drop a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Make sure you check me out on social media. Follow me on LinkedIn. And as always, thank you for watching.